So it's time to answer everybody's question. How did the Clew do in deep snow, ice, negative temperatures, and would I still recommend them after 20 days of riding and on the snow? Let's talk about it. So over the last 3 weeks, I spent 10 days total out west. I did 7 days riding in Utah in deep snow. I had 2 20-inch powder days, but we were able to find powder the entirety of our trip, and we stayed in the trees, did all sorts of stuff. I took them to Jackson Hole, and unfortunately we didn't get powder, but what we did get was super cold temperatures, -10 wind chills, and a lot of ice. And not to mention, I've just had a lot more days riding the Clew snowboard binding since my last review. So I wanted to do a long-term review and talk about how the Clew has done for me over 20 days of riding this snowboard season. In powder, a lot of people have said,
oh, those aren't gonna work when you get them in deep snow. Those won't work when you get snow in the binding. So
I wanted to address those people and just answer this question specifically. How did the Clew do for me in snow? Well, like I said, in Utah, we had 7 days of riding, 2 of which were 20-inch powder days, but we were able to find powder the entire time we were there. You know, we stayed in the trees, we went anywhere we could find any little powder stashes. We rode that, lived in it, and had an absolute blast doing so. In powder, in the trees, the responsiveness out of these bindings was really, really good. I had no trouble, you know, zigging and zagging in and out of all these trees. And even once I got up to higher speeds, the responsiveness of these was still really, really great. They handled it, you know, like a champ. I took them on countless tree runs, off some little rock drops, some log drops, all sorts of things. They did really great. Even off those drops, my feet remained comfortable the entire time. I never had like a harsh landing or anything that felt like it stung my feet. And just on that subject, I did ride in Utah 7 days straight. I've never snowboarded 7 days straight without a rest day before. And I attribute a lot of the comfort of that to these bindings specifically, because like I said, never had any foot pain, no discomfort, no leg fatigue or anything like that. I rode all days, no problems whatsoever, and that's the first time I've ever been able to pull that off. So really, really impressed by just the overall comfort and ride quality of these for that kind of riding. And some of those days we were riding start to finish. As far as the step in and step out mechanism in deep snow. So out of the entire 10 days out west, and really my whole season as a whole, there were only 2 days in which I felt like I needed to use the straps. It wasn't so much because the step-in mechanism wouldn't work. There were just certain scenarios in those deeper snow, or say we got stuck and had to hike out, where undoing the straps just made a little bit more sense and seemed a little easier to me. So that being said, out of my whole 20 days of riding, 2 days that I actually had to use the straps instead, and those were those 2 20-inch powder days. Just depending on the terrain or the scenario, I kind of split it up 50% of the time. And again, the step-in mechanism still was working in the snow. I was able to get that first click with ease, and I could get the second click if I jumped on my heel, help get, you know, that additional snow out of there, and I had no trouble with it whatsoever. But when we did have to hike into some deeper spots or we got stuck, it was just easier to pop those straps and step out like normal. What I will say is I really liked having the versatility of that, because depending on the scenario, I still had options to get in and out of the bindings. And I know with some other step-in bindings, you don't have that option. You get all or nothing. So I did enjoy, I never was worried, oh, I can't get into my binding because the snow's too deep, because I had options. I've also heard too where people have taken the step-in bindings for some other brands into some deeper snow. And I talked to one guy who got his foot actually hung up under a tree. He wasn't able to hit the lever and do the motion required to release it, and he got stuck. His buddy had to dig his foot out so that he was able to actually get his foot out of the binding. And again, with these, I think that's the really great thing from a safety standpoint, is you do have 2 points of options to pop out of those bindings if you need to. But I will say, one really great thing about this high back design is that when you do have this on the bottom of your boot, if you do just pop out to hike out instead of using the straps, that this actually does give you a little bit more traction when you are walking on the snow. It kind of digs in a little bit and just gives you a little bit better of a platform, when you are walking. And I really, really actually like that on, if I had to, just to have a little bit of extra grip on that icier snow. So again, in deep snow, in powder, the Clew performed absolutely awesome. I had no noticeable technical difficulties, and it didn't feel like it held my riding back in any way. That was 2 of the best days I've ever had on a snowboard, and the riding I've done on these bindings the entire time has just been phenomenal in soft snow and over to ice. So I've gotten a lot of questions about how they perform in icy conditions, especially once you get up to those higher speeds and people talk about the chatter and this and that. And honestly, you don't. Like I said, I rode non-stop. In Jackson, we had ice pretty much all 3 days that we were there. And because of the steep terrain that Jackson's known for, we were going to some pretty high speeds. And even with high speeds, skipping along the ice and stuff, you know, the chatter never felt like it resonated under my foot. I never felt any additional foot fatigue, any discomfort. It was really, really comfortable. The foam in the bottom of the binding absorbed that all really well. I did comment in my other video that if I had to name one drawback, it was that you got a little bit of chatter, but I also said it's not that bad. So honestly, it's really negligible. If I was being really nitpicky, I would say they had a little bit of chatter and stuff, but honestly, they're just a really comfortable binding day in and day out. I also got some questions about ice buildup because people have said,
oh, those aren't gonna work when you get ice buildup on the binding.
Well, yes, they do. There was one day out of my entire season where I had a little bit of ice buildup get inside of the step-on mechanism. And again, got into the first click, no problem. The second one, did a little hop, broke that ice free. I was in the binding and good to go. And it's honestly, it happened that one time. And my thought process is, it was on a day when it's negative temperatures and these clips are metal, so obviously they're gonna get super cold, and I just think some of that moisture built up and it froze a little bit. But I got in perfectly fine, and that was a one-time scenario out of my entire 20 days of riding. One singular run where I had a little bit of ice buildup caused me half a second of some extra difficulty. So yeah, they still are gonna work. Ice buildup was never really an issue. Again, if you do run into that, just hop, it breaks it, and you go on and you click in like normal, still faster than using the straps. Also, just to address it, I did get some ice buildup on this ratchet, but again, I just took it, went like that, broke the ice off. I've had that happen on other bindings with straps when it gets super cold like that. It was no big deal, but I just did, you know, feel out of honesty, I should mention it. But yes, you just go like that, no more ice, problem solved. In the park, how did they do? I don't consider myself by any means a super hardcore park rider. I take laps through it occasionally just for fun. In Jackson Hole, we did take a couple laps. I've taken several laps at my local resort, and they handled everything phenomenally. Jumps, the landings were comfortable. I had plenty of control and responsiveness to get onto flat boxes, and I never felt like that was gonna cause me any issue. Honestly, one thing I do really love about these in the park is that you can kind of hot lap it out. Like if you're like me, you're on the East Coast, you've got a tow rope, you can go down, pop the lever, skate over to your tow rope. As you're going up the tow rope, you can literally step back into your binding, and so as soon as you sling yourself off the tow rope, you can take off on another lap again without having to, you know, unstrap, restrap, all that stuff. It just makes it a whole lot simpler for people to be able to really bang out those park hot laps. Again, park performance-wise, that's not my biggest thing, but they did really, really great for me, and the little bit of park riding I did do, super impressed. It seems a little silly, but I have been asked several times, will this detach on you on a chairlift? No, no, it's not gonna fall off on your chairlift and watch your board go tumbling hundreds of feet below. I had some super windy conditions several times on the chairlift where my board was swaying in the wind and it felt like it was just barely hanging on, but it never came off. Never was a doubt in my mind that that would even happen. One really great thing about these bindings is they do actually have a safety feature built in to prevent certain scenarios like this on a chairlift, if it snags your lever in a crash. So to get out of these bindings, you have to keep all your weight on the heel of your boot, fully pull up this lever to engage it, and then lift your foot out. If you try to do that in any different order or all these motions at the same time, and I can say from personal experience, this locks up. It feels like you're stuck in the binding, but you're not. It's just the safety feature to help keep your board on your feet. So no, this is not gonna fall off on you on a chairlift. That's not something you have to worry about with these bindings whatsoever. Now, walking in the high backs. Do you have to walk in this high back all day long? I cannot tell you how many times I have answered and addressed this question specifically on this channel or just on any social media platform. You do not have to walk in the high back all day if you don't want to. Now, I will say when you are walking with the high back on your boot, it's not uncomfortable. It's honestly like a negligible difference. It feels like no additional weight, no extra, you know, you kind of forget it's down there. Again, you do get a little bit more grip, but you don't feel anything by having this on your boot. But if that is something you're worried about, and I don't see why you would be, let me explain to you, and I have a full video coming out where I'm gonna fully address this and just show you what I'm talking about. But to sum it up, yes, you can walk in this if you want to, but what I do is I come down a run, I'll lift my boot out, keep this on my boot, I skate through the chairlift line, get back on the chairlift, click back in, and that's the only walking I typically do in these. Now, if I'm gonna walk further than 20 or 30 yards, or if I have to go to the bathroom or in the lodge, well, that is the awesome thing about these, is that you can still, and for some reason people forget it, just unstrap it like a traditional binding and you can just walk like normal. Again, not uncomfortable to walk in, but you don't have to walk in it all day if you don't want to. There's several people who are deeply concerned with feeling silly walking with the high back on your boot. But one, I think it looks kind of cool, but two, you don't have to. That's the great thing with the Clew snowboard binding, is you get either option. You can strap or click in depending on the scenario. So would I say that the Clew are still worth it? Would I still recommend them? Do I still think they're worth the money? 100%. Abso-stinkin-lutely, these bindings are awesome. Every scenario, every mountain, temperature, snow condition, anything I've taken them in, they have performed insanely well, and I've been blown away by their performance throughout the season. And I plan to keep on rocking these for as long as I can see into the future. You know, I love these bindings. I do think they're worth it. Yes, they're a little bit pricey, but they're just as competitively priced with a higher end binding, but they're cheaper than other step-in options where you have to buy a boot and binding. You get one binding that's gonna fit any boot on the market, and you're good to go. Plus, another great thing about these for a price point is that, say you have 2 different snowboards, or if you're like me and you travel and you wanna take multiple snowboards with you. Well, with the Clew, you can buy one set of bindings, but you can buy additional just base plates for $200, and then that way you can literally like leave the high back on your boot, step off one snowboard and step right onto another, and you're good to go. So for $200 you can get another set of bases, and it's like owning 2 sets of bindings, which that's cheaper than buying 2 sets of bindings. And I think it's a way more convenient option, especially if you're like me and you travel. It just makes it really easy when you take 2. I definitely will be picking up a second set of bases for sure next season. Like I said, I love these bindings. I'm gonna continue to rock them. They are sold out right now, but they are available for pre-order. Now the pre-order does give you a discounted rate, but that will be closing soon, and then you'll have to wait till October to pick these bindings up. If you're watching this and the pre-order is closed, or it is already into next season, if you use my promo code ALEX10, it's gonna give you 10% off your purchase of these bindings when the full price, it doesn't stack with the pre-order price, just the full price, help give you a little bit of a discount. So I can't recommend ordering a pair, or just go on and put in a pre-order pair for next season. If you're on the fence, thinking about it, just bite the bullet and do it. You won't regret it. They are 100% a game changer, the fastest and most convenient step-in binding system out there. I've watched a lot of videos on others, I've tested others as well, and these beat them all tenfold. I love these bindings and have been super pleased with them all season. If you have any questions about the Clew, hit me up in the comments below. I respond to every single comment. I've got several more videos about them coming out specifically, as well as I'm gonna create a entire Clew playlist. So make sure you subscribe, check that out. I've got tons more videos coming out from all the resorts that I've taken these to as well, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch this, and I hope you found it really helpful. If you did, please smash that like button, subscribe, follow along on the journey. Thank you guys so much again for your time, and hope you're getting some great snow out there. See you on the mountain soon.